Hey y'all, welcome back to my channel. My name is Taya and this is Taya's Turning Pages. Editing me popping in here, I just wanted to quickly pull you guys for a chat. Word of Love Island, but I wanted to pull you guys for a chat and give a disclaimer and just preface and say that a few of the books in this video, as well as a few of the couples featured in this video, do come from enemies to lovers stories. I understand that not everyone likes the enemies to lovers trope, and I also understand that this trope is problematic within itself. But at the end of the day, I do like the enemies to lovers trope a lot. I have always been an enemies to lovers girly, and I probably will always be an enemies to lovers girly. Now, just because I am highlighting and talking about these books in this video does not mean that I actually condone this type of trope or storyline in real life. I do not condone, nor do I advocate for toxic romances, emotionally unavailable people getting into relationships even though they shouldn't be in real life, etc., etc. That is not my MO, that is not my jam, and that is not what I'm trying to do with this video. I just wanted to come on here and just talk about all of the couples that made me feel things and that really moved me, and they just so happen to be in an enemies to lovers situation. I understand if, you know, some of these books don't mesh well with you, or if you give me a bombastic side eye with some of them, I totally understand. But at the end of the day, this is my channel. I love enemies to lovers, and I really loved a lot of the couples that came out of these books, and I try my best to explain why and really give more reasons as to, oh, I just liked it because of the drama. Like, no, I really tried to dive deep and like give you guys explanations as to why certain couples struck a chord with me. Just wanted to preface and say that before we jump into the video. Now, please keep in mind, like I've said before, reading is subjective at the end of the day. So you might not like all of the recommendations or books that I recommend or highlight, and that's totally fine. And vice versa. I might not like all of the books that you read or would recommend. So just keep that in mind. Keep it cute in the comments, please. I would really appreciate it. But again, I really just wanted to film this video because all of these couples have made me feel something at some point or another, and I just wanted to talk about them and gush about them. I've never really filmed a video where I talk about my favorite book couples, and I really wanted to. So yeah, that's really all this is about. Today we're going to talk about all things love, romance, swooning, and just epic love stories. And to be honest, y'all, I don't know what I'm going to title this video yet. All I know is that I really want to talk about all of these books that have amazing fictional couples that went above and beyond to exceed my expectations when it came to a romance book, and that also made me believe in love again. So that is what this video is going to be all about, but also just to gush over the amazing epic love stories that came out of all of these books. As you guys know, I am a character-driven reader first, and so whenever I can find a book that has two characters at the forefront that can really sell it for me and really make me want to be invested in them, I'm all here for it.
I really couldn't care less about the plot.
And I know that sounds so sacrilegious, I know, but at the end of the day, that's just the type of reader that I am. I love great characters, and that's what really sells the story for me. It also makes me want to give it a high rating. It is what it is. So for once, I'm not going to spend too much time on the intro. I just wanted to get all of that out of the way. So let's jump right in. The first book that I have here, I feel like is a little bit more lighthearted in comparison to the other books and the other couples that I'm going to talk about today. And the book that I have here is It Happened One Summer by Tessa Bailey. So of course, if you're an OG or a consistent viewer, then you know how much I love It Happened One Summer. This is truly my favorite rom-com of all time, and I still haven't had a rom-com to knock this book off of its throne. And that says a lot because I've read so many rom-coms since I read It Happened One Summer for the first time. There's still no other rom-com or a group of characters that compare to Piper and Brendan and this overall plot. So this story follows two characters named Piper and Brendan. And so starting with Piper, Piper is very high maintenance, she's very bougie, and she's used to the finer things in life, and Piper's stepfather is essentially funding her entire lifestyle until one day she gets caught up in some shit, and her stepfather gets so upset to the point where he cuts her off and decides to send her to this small town that Piper's biological father used to live in. And Piper's biological father is unfortunately deceased, so Piper hasn't really had any connection with her father because he passed away when she was so young. But like I was saying, her stepfather ends up sending her to this small town so that way she can learn the value of $1. And right off the bat, she's not feeling it, she's not happy. This town is known for being outdoorsy and known for their crab fishing skills, and so Piper's not feeling it. On top of that, she runs into her love interest, but at first her enemy Brendan, and Brendan and Piper are automatically not feeling each other. Brendan looks at Piper as a nuisance. He also looks at her as this high maintenance bougie valley girl, whereas Piper on the other hand does extend a little bit of kindness to Brendan, but at the same time she does recognize him as someone that is a grump and someone that she doesn't really want to be around. Throughout the story, you start to see Brendan and Piper get thrown into situations together, and they start start to realize that the other one isn't as bad as they thought, and the story takes off from there. So while this book is lighter in comparison in terms of the actual storyline and the characters themselves compared to the other books I have in this pile, I still wanted to share this because regardless, Piper and Brendan truly mean so much to me, and they're one of my favorite couples of all time. I feel like this book is pure enemies to lovers perfection, and I think Piper and Brendan did a great job and not only selling me on the enemy part of their journey, but also the lovers part. I was gagged when we finally got to the chapters where these two started to show their feelings for one another and really started to act on them. Despite both of them having preconceived notions about one another and thinking that they really knew each other in the beginning, to actually seeing them start to unlearn the stereotypes that they had placed on one another, and to also see them truly putting an effort to get to know the other beneath the surface was just so beautiful. For me, it was even more moving when Brendan really started to see that there was more to Piper than meets the eye. I know Piper gets a lot of shit from romance readers, but I love the fact that Brendan recognized that Piper was more than just someone who liked to shop. She is so kind, she's so charismatic, and you can tell that she has a pure heart. And I love the fact that he was able, like I said, to recognize that. Even though it wasn't super early on, I still love the fact that he was able to recognize that, and he knew that she was a good woman and he needed to hold on to her for dear life, okay? And I love that. I'm sorry, I love a good grumpy sunshine trope, but I love the way that Tessa Bailey did it with Brendan and Piper. Even though these two were opposites, they worked, and they worked so well. And then going to Brendan, even though Brendan was very rigid and very structured and was very type A, Piper didn't let that stop her from being who she fully was, but she also didn't let that intimidate her. She was still pursuing Brendan as much as Brendan was pursuing her. And so I like the fact that she put her foot down and was like, look, you can be a rugged, moody, broody grump as much as you want, but at the end of the day, that's not going to faze me, and you're gonna have to try a little bit harder. And I just love the fact that she, again, was not going down without a fight when it came to Brendan. And even though she was really sweet and really nice, she still let him know, like, hey, I'm not the one of the two, don't play with me, you know? I know that there's a lot of readers that don't care for Brendan either, but I feel like you're always going to get that with enemies to lovers. There's always going to be things about the characters that you don't like or that you don't agree with. At the end of the day, like, that is the trope, that is the story at hand, and you have to take it for what it is. And I just feel like this was pure enemies to lovers perfection, like I said. If you are a fan of enemies to lovers like myself, then you need to pick up this book if you haven't already and give it a try, because this book just exceeded my expectations and more. And I cannot wait to reread this book this summer, because as you guys can see here, I have not annotated this book because I read this book before I really got into annotating. So I'm definitely going to reread this summer and highlight all of the quotes and all of the swoon-worthy moments that popped up throughout this book. And trust me, there were a lot. The next book that I have here is a historical romance, and it is Through the Storm by Beverly Jenkins. So this is another book that I have talked about a lot on my channel, and I'm going to talk about it again because this book is just too incredible to not put a spotlight on it whenever I can. I'm actually just going to read the synopsis for this book because there is so much that happens within this story and so much to Raymond and Sable's love story that I don't want to spoil anything. So on the back here it says, Raymond Levesque needed to marry to gain his inheritance and restore the fortunes of the House of Levesque, the proud Black New Orleans family whose wealth had been ravaged by the war between the states. Still wounded by the double cross of the only woman he ever came close to loving, he gave the choice of bride to his mother. But he never expected that she would pick Sable Fontaine, the beautiful former enslaved woman he could not allow himself to trust again. Betrayed and sold to a cruel neighbor, Sable did whatever it took to escape. With the spirits of her royal African ancestors guiding her, she made a bold bid for freedom, and won. But along the way, she had to hurt the charming Union Major Levesque, who had romanced her and championed her. Now fate has brought them back together in a marriage of convenience. Could she convince Raymond she was never a rebel spy, and that this time she'd choose him above all else? This is another epic love story that I just can't get enough of, and that I can't stop talking about, because Sable and Raymond are just everything. These two characters felt so real, and I've said that with multiple Beverly Jenkins books, that she has a knack for creating compelling characters that genuinely feel like the real life people, but these two in particular felt as though they could just walk right off the pages. There were so many instances where I felt like I really got to know Sable and Raymond both individually and collectively, but the chapters where you got to spend time in both of their heads and really getting to know their inner workings and their inner thoughts, it was just so real and raw, and I just felt like I was there right alongside with these two characters getting to know the other. And that's why I love enemies to lovers or strangers to lovers, because I just like the fact that you can learn about characters in a way that you wouldn't learn about them when it comes to friends to lovers. And no shade to all of my friends to lovers baddies, like I know you guys love that trope so much and I'm not taking that away from you. I'm just saying personally for me, this is the book that really made me realize that I love, again, strangers to lovers or enemies to lovers, because you just get to know these characters in ways that I feel like you wouldn't get to know them in a friends to lovers story. And that's exactly how I felt with Raven and Sable. I truly love Sable so much, and especially seeing her growth from page 1 all the way up until the end was just incredible. I genuinely felt like I watched these two characters grow up in a way, and to see them beat all of the odds, because there were so many, okay, there were so many, but to see them beat the odds and overcome so many different obstacles that were thrown their way and still come out on top, it just made me believe in love again, you know? It made me believe that even though life can get hard, there are so many cards that could be stacked up against you. If you're sure of yourself and if you have the right person, the right people in your back corner, you can get through anything, period. I do feel like the reason why this love story was just so epic and why I resonated with this so much is because of the rich history that is incorporated within this book. As you guys can hear by that synopsis, Sable was enslaved, and this was also during the time of the Civil War. So there were a lot of things happening within this story that Sable and Raymond had to face that no other couple, I feel like, in the Beverly Jenkins books that I've read thus far had to face. And so the fact that they were able to navigate all of that and again still come out on top and being able to still love each other out loud, fully and proudly, and just bask in all of that was just the cherry on top. It was just beautiful. This is another book that I plan on rereading and going back and annotating, because this was just too incredible to not revisit. The next 4 books that I'm going to show you guys are actually all by the same author. They're both a part of different series, but the first series and the first book that I'm going to start off with is the Hoop series, and it is Long Shot by Kennedy Ryan. So my time has finally come to talk about Long Shot again in depth, and I'm just so excited to do that because I always mention Long Shot in a lot of my videos, but I don't really spend too much time talking about it, like really going into detail. This was a book that I read a while ago and I already gave you guys my thoughts on it, but I just have to plug this again, and I have to talk about August and Iris again because this couple really did it for me. This is the book that got me into Kennedy Ryan. Give respect to the queen, okay? So I'm just really happy that I can talk about this book with you guys again and really like get into the nitty-gritty the way that I wanted to for a while now, because it's what this book deserves. So like I mentioned, this is the first book in the Hoop series that follows 3 different basketball players. The story follows August and Iris. August and Iris actually attend the same college, and they end up meeting one night in this sports bar that's like in the same town as their college. They don't know each other personally, and they've never met each other or spoke to each other until this moment, but they're both in this bar and they're both watching the basketball game that's on, and August takes an interest in Iris right away because he looks at her as like, there's a beautiful woman in the sports bar that is really into this game just like me. Match made in heaven. August is already smitten by Iris pretty early on, and Iris, you can tell, does feel attracted to August, and she does, you know, flirt with him a little bit, but she does keep a distance because Iris is technically in a relationship, and she's in a relationship with one of August's teammates, but they don't know that yet. But anyways, they're, like I said, enjoying their night together. They're watching this game, having great chat, all of that stuff, but they do end up, of course, going their several ways at the end of the night, and August is really regretful about it. He knows that he probably won't ever see her again, so he is pretty bummed about this, and Iris is also kind of upset, but she of course puts it in the back of her mind because she is in a relationship. So some time passes until I think Iris's boyfriend and August's team end up playing each other in a professional basketball game, and she's sitting in the stands, and that's when she notices August on the court, and somehow August, I guess, senses that Iris is there and is looking at them because he ends up finding her in the stands, and their eyes immediately lock. And from that moment on, and from that one look, August and Iris start to develop an even more intense attraction and lust and likeness for one another that ultimately leads to the story spiraling out of control. The synopsis on the back of this book is very vague, and I was very shocked when I dove into this story and started to read it and get further along because I was just not expecting everything that was going to happen. Now I will say, please make sure you look up trigger warnings for this book. There are a lot of heavy, intense themes of domestic violence, but besides that, this story and this couple were just truly epic. I was so attached to both Iris and August, and I wanted the best for them. I was rooting for them honestly since page 1. When we first got introduced to them in that sports bar, I knew early on that this was the couple that I was going to stan and that I was going to want to protect with my entire life, and that's exactly what happened. August and Iris are both strong characters on their own. You get to spend time with both of them, and you really get to see, again, the inner workings of them and just what's going through their heads, and you really get to connect with them in ways that I feel like you don't get to connect with other characters in other books. And that's one thing I love about Kennedy Ryan's books, is that she is the GOAT when it comes to creating compelling and moving characters. They truly feel like real people, and you become so attached to them so early on, but especially Iris because of the domestic violence that she is facing. Besides August and Iris seeing each other for who they really are, I love the fact that August was so gentle and so patient and so understanding when it came to Iris. She was just dealing with so many things that you might not come across on a daily basis, of course. And so to know that she was dealing with so much pain and turmoil, when her and August did have those little moments where they could be booed up and they could, you know, react to one another, it just made me so happy for her, because she really did not get that many moments of happiness. And so when she did get it, I wanted her to hold on to it for dear life and to never let it go. But I genuinely loved how patient and understanding August was. And I know that probably sounds weird, because it's like, girl, the bar is in hell. I know. But at the same time, I felt like it was refreshing. I love the fact that August really allowed Iris to have the space to take her time and to not rush anything, because she goes through so many harrowing experiences. So for August to really take his time and to be patient with her and to really let her know that, like, I'm here for you, I'm going to wait for you, I want to be the man of your dreams, and I'm going to show you that, and I don't care how long it takes. All of that just really did something to me and just altered my brain chemistry in a way that I can't explain. So I can't say enough great things about August and Iris and their love story, and just how they were able to overcome so many different obstacles their way. Because besides, of course, Iris dealing with everything that she was dealing with, there were things that August had going on in his personal life that also really affected his career, and that really affected his sense of self and his identity. And so there were just so many heavy and hard-hitting themes within this story that really make you take a step back and makes you look at things differently and makes you reflect on different things. I still love the fact that there was a solid love story here. It truly reminded me of that, like, saying, or that process of like a jewel or a diamond being under a lot of like pressure. That's how it felt. That's how I would compare their relationship. It felt like their relationship, their love, was like a diamond underneath a lot of pressure, but once that pressure was finally released, it was sparkling, it was shining, and it was just absolutely beautiful to look at and observe. So I can't say enough great things about this book, about this couple. Just pick up Longshot if you haven't already, but again, please make sure you do your research before you dive into it, because there are so many intense trigger warnings, and everything that Iris goes through really broke my heart. Just make sure you do your research, but all in all, this is a beautiful love story, and if you are looking for something that is emotionally gripping, this is the book for you. And the last book from the series that I wanted to show you today is Blockshot. This is a book that I feel like truly caught me off guard. I was not expecting to love this book and Banner and Jared as much as I did, but I will get into why I ended up ranking this book so highly and why I ended up loving this couple as much as I did a little bit later. But I did just want to give the synopsis, of course. So this story follows two characters named Banner and Jared, and Banner and Jared are actually connected to both August and Iris and Longshot. I'm not going to get into the logistics of how they're all connected, but just know that they are. Banner and Jared actually attend the same college, and they're both very interested in becoming sports agents one day. They do have quite a few classes together, and Jared has always noticed Banner. He's always thought that she was very attractive, and there was always something about her that just pulled him to her. He could never place his finger on what it was exactly, but there was just something about Banner that just made Jared essentially go feral. And so he's very interested in her. He really wants to get into her orbit and really be in her life. And Banner, on the other hand, is very to herself. She's very reserved and very studious, and so she's all about her academics. She's all about just making sure that she gets the best grades that she possibly can get, and so she doesn't really have time for guys or anything outside of school. Banner and Jared do end up working on this project together, and they are alone most of the time, and they start to get to know each other. And one night, Jared finally admits his attraction to Banner, and he lets her know that, listen, I'm into you, and I would really like to explore this if you're interested in it. So Banner is hesitant at first because graduation is looming. They're both about to go their separate ways, and she doesn't want to get hurt, obviously, but she decides to throw caution to the wind and essentially hook up with Jared. But there is an incident that involves Jared, and it completely humiliates Banner. She is mortified, and she doesn't want anything to do with Jared after this incident. So of course, Jared is trying to apologize to Banner. He's trying to make it up to her, but Banner just won't allow it. She won't have it. And so Banner and Jared do end up graduating, and they don't speak to each other for years. I think 10 years actually pass until they end up crossing paths again. And once these 10 years are up, they do end up crossing paths again, like I said, because they are both now successful sports agents. They haven't actually ran into each other or really been in the same circle. They've been able to duck each other ever since, until this one weekend where they do end up in the same space. And so now that Banner is in Jared's grasp again, Jared is determined to get Banner back by any means necessary, and the story takes off from there. And so this is a second chance romance, and I have to say that this is probably one of the ultimate, if not the ultimate, second chance romance, because the lengths that Jared goes to get Banner back I've never seen this in another story before. He is ruthless. He does not care about anything or anyone else but Banner. And you get to know this about Jared and his personality very early on, is that when he is focused on something and when he wants something, nothing is going to stop him from getting it. And in this instance, it was Banner. I had and I still have a lot of conflicting thoughts on Jared, just because he is an alpha male through and through. He is very possessive, and there are a lot of moments where he is a little bit misogynistic, I won't lie. But of course, his redemption arc throughout the story is very compelling and very moving. But I also love the way that he loves Banner. Like, you can tell that his love for her is so unconditional and that he wants to dote on her. I just loved the way that he loved Banner so fiercely. And there's something in here that Jared says to her I feel like encapsulates their love story so well. He said to her, and I just feel like that, like I said, truly encapsulates this book and the feelings that he has for Banner so well. Because despite these two coming from different backgrounds, and despite them having their own methods and ways of being successful sports agents, they are very similar. They're both very ambitious. They're both very determined, blunt. When they have their eyes on the prize, that's all they see. They get tunnel vision and they go for it. So I truly bought into them as a couple, and I bought into their romance. I just feel like this is one of those Kennedy Ryan books that is just so good. Like, it is just good. The way that the plot and the characters are crafted, the messaging and the overall themes of the story were just executed so well. Because they haven't seen each other in over a decade, Jared is not only trying to get back in Banner's good graces, but he's also trying to learn her all over again, and vice versa. Banner is trying to learn Jared too, because they haven't seen each other or spoken to each other in a long time. So they virtually don't know each other anymore. So to see them get to know each other again in a different way, in a different capacity, was just so refreshing, and I loved everything about this story. And the main thing that pushed this book over the edge for me was the bonus epilogue. Kennedy Ryan has a tendency to include bonus epilogues in her books, and Long Shot and Block Shot were no different. If you have read this book and you haven't read the bonus epilogue for this,
what are you waiting for? I don't know.
But you need to pick it up and give it a read, because it is just, it's incredible. It was so cinematic, and it was just such a nice send-off for both Jared and Banner. And just to see the passion and the love that these two have for one another, even in that bonus epilogue, it was everything that I could have asked for. Not only an epilogue, but also in a romance story. So that is another thing that I will say about this couple, is that the passion between them is no joke. These two are hot and heavy for one another, and it is very evident throughout the entire story, and I wasn't mad at it. The smut level in here, perfection. True perfection. Banner and Jared are in my top 5 in terms of my favorite fictional couples of all time. Like, I love Iris and August. They are definitely in my top 10. But when it comes to Jared and Banner, baby, top 5, top 5, top 5. Like, come on. Come on. The next two books that I have here are both by Kennedy Ryan, and it is a duology, and it is the Kingsmaker duology. So right here you have the first book called The Kingmaker, and then you have the second book, which is called The Rebel King. So I'm mostly going to be talking about The Rebel King. I'm not going to give any spoilers or anything like that, but I do want to focus more so on this book, because this is where you get more of the action, more of the angst, and more of Lennox and Maxim. But I will at least give you a general synopsis of what the duology is about. So this duology follows two characters named Lennox and Maxim, and Lennox and Maxim come from completely different backgrounds. So Lennox is actually indigenous, and she's grew up part-time on a reservation, and then she spends her other time with her father, who is non-indigenous. But Lennox is very outspoken, and she's very passionate about indigenous people's rights, and she is an advocate and an activist of sorts. So she is on the front lines, she protests, she advocates, and she does what she needs to do to, again, secure rights for her people. And then on the flip side of that, you have her love interest named Maxim. Maxim is actually older than Lennox. I forget how old he is compared to her, but there is an age gap between the two. But Maxim comes from a very wealthy family, a very powerful family, and Maxim is white. So there are a lot of nuances and layers that do go within this duology. I will just preface that now. But like I said, he comes from a very wealthy family, but Maxim has always been the black sheep of his family. His dad and his brother are all about, you know, wealth, status, political gain, things like that, whereas Maxim, on the other hand, is very interested in saving the planet and really being conscious of the environment. Maxim and his father do not get along at all. They butt heads quite a bit, but like I said, they're both from completely different worlds. And one day the worlds do collide, because Maxim and his father actually pull up to this protest that Lennox is leading. Something pops off at this protest where Lennox is almost injured until Maxim comes in and saves the day. But because of this, they both end up getting arrested and thrown into the same jail cell. And so they do get to spend time with one another in this jail cell. They start to talk to one another. There is a growing attraction between the two, but they don't act on it because Maxim is a bit older than Lennox, like I said, and again, they're from different backgrounds, so they figure that they won't see each other again anyway. And so they end up, of course, getting bailed out, and they don't see each other for years until they both end up in Amsterdam on like vacation. And you follow these two throughout the duology of them having that second chance romance and trying to defy all of the odds and beat all of these obstacles to be together in the end. But like I said, I really wanted to focus on the Rebel King because this is where you get all of the action, and this is what really catapulted Lennox and Maxim into my favorite fictional couples of all time list, because this book just had so much to it. You really get to see these two characters grow up. Lennox is around 18 when her and Maxim first meet, and I think Maxim is actually studying for his PhD or something like that. So like I said, he is considerably older, but you really get to see these two grow up in these two books, and just to see where they started and to see where they ended up was just so moving. Getting to go on this journey with these two and getting to know these characters the way that you get to know them just made the story even more engaging, more immersive, and more cinematic in my opinion. I felt like the story read so cinematically. There were so many moments between Lennox and Maxim that I could envision in my head, and Kennedy Ryan just has such a way with words and was able to paint so many vivid pictures of their relationship and just how mythic these two were. That is the best way that I can describe Lennox and Maxim. True moths to a flame, and you couldn't keep these two apart. No matter what was going on in the world, no matter what was going on in their personal lives, these two always found their way back to each other. And as a hopeless romantic, I can just say that their relationship is hopeless romantic's dream, okay? If you love romance, if you love love, then this is the series that you need to pick up, because these two truly made me fall back in love with the idea of love again. Of course they had their moments, and of course they had a lot of ups and downs throughout their relationship, but I still feel like the way that they were so, again, attracted to one another, and it felt as though they had a magnetic pull to each other. I just really resonate with couples like that, where you can just tell off the bat that they're soulmates and that there's no other way that this can end. The only way that this can end is with them being together. And so those were the vibes and the feelings that I got with Lennox and Maxim. I just feel like their love story is epic in every sense of the word. And I know I've said that about every single book here, and that is the theme of this video, but this story and this couple, they beat so much to get to the point that they got to at the end of the story. They went through so much trauma, so much hardship, individually and collectively, and they also had to take breaks from one another in their relationship. And while a lot of people might not agree with that, I totally understand, but I feel like the decisions that they made to be apart and to carve out their own path and to reach the goals that they wanted to reach made sense. I genuinely feel that way, because again, they both came from different backgrounds, but they both had a clear mission of wanting to change the world, and they had to do it individually, and to still come out on top, to still have a great love that not too many people get to say that they've had in their lifetime, was just so moving and so inspiring. Another thing that I loved about Lennox and Maxim is that they saw each other for who the other really was. That was a common theme throughout this book. I love the fact that they were both able to get beneath the surface and see the other's potential and see how far they could go. Maxim was always so supportive of Lennox and wanted her to be the change that she wanted to see in the world. Even though they had their moments, again, he was still always on the sidelines rooting for her and watching her from afar, and vice versa. Lennox did the same for Maxim. And again, to see these two end up in the position that they ended up in the end, it was just so fitting, so on brand, and it tracked. I think about this couple and I look at this duology and I just think about how much I want to reread it and just fall back in love with these characters, because they truly solidified my love for romance and love for emotional, gripping, epic love stories. Sorry if the angle has changed, y'all. My camera died. But we have one more book here, and the book that I'm referring to is The Fine Print by Lauren Asher. So y'all, I finally read The Fine Print by Lauren Asher, and I'm so happy that I did, because this has easily become one of my favorite romances of all time, period. You might not be able to see it all that well because of my ring light, but I tabbed this book the fuck up, okay? Like, there are so many things that I underlined, circled, drew hearts near, exclamation points, the whole nine. Like, this book is incredible. Y'all know when it comes to romances that blow up on BookTok, they're very hit or miss. You never really know, but I can say that the BookTok girlies were right with this one. They got this one right, because I love this story with everything in me, and Zara and Rowan, I'm protecting them with my life. But I'm actually just going to read the synopsis for this book because, again, similar to a lot of these other books, there's a lot going on with the plot. So on the back here it says, Rowan, I'm in the business of creating fairy tales, theme parks, production companies, 5-star hotels. Everything could be all mine if I renovated Dreamland. My initial idea of hiring Zara was good in theory, but then I kissed her. Things spiraled out of control once I texted her using an alias. By the time I realized where I went wrong, it was too late. People like me don't get happy endings, not when we're destined to ruin them. Zara, after submitting a drunk proposal criticizing Dreamland's most expensive ride, I should have been fired. Instead, Rowan Kane offered me a dream job. The catch? I had to work for the most difficult boss I'd ever met. Rowan was rude and completely off limits, but my heart didn't care. At least not until I discovered his secret. It was time to teach the billionaire that money couldn't fix everything, especially not us. So as y'all can hear by that synopsis, there are a lot of different tropes within this story. There is grumpy sunshine, there is enemies to lovers to an extent, and of course just, you know, the good girl falling in love with a bad boy essentially. And I ate this book up. There was so much about this story that I genuinely loved and I adored, and Rowan and Zara completely stole the show for me. And I'm not sure what the general consensus is on the fine print or what the general consensus is on Rowan. I will preface and say that Rowan is extremely emotionally unavailable. Okay, so let's just get that out of the way first. He's extremely emotionally unavailable. He is not the nicest person. He can be very cruel, but underneath all of that rough, hard exterior, he does have a kind heart, especially for the people that he loves and cares about, i.e. Zara. And I'm not saying that that's an excuse for him to act the way that he acts, especially to Zara in the beginning, but y'all know how these bad boy stories go. It is what it is. And I was rooting for Zara and Rowan every step of the way. Was Rowan perfect? Absolutely not. Did he have a lot of faults and flaws? Absolutely. But there's something about Rowan that I genuinely did like, and that made me have a soft spot for him. It made me empathize or sympathize with him to an extent. I actually said this on my Instagram stories. This book was so Chuck and Blair coded. I'm sorry, y'all. Y'all know I love Gossip Girl so much. I can't stop talking about it. And so the fact that this book, but more specifically Rowan, was so similar to Chuck was eerie. It was very eerie because I was not expecting that at all. But it makes sense. Chuck and Rowan are both billionaires. They both have parental issues, more specifically father issues. And they were also told that any displays of emotions as a man made them weak. It made them look weak. And so there's just a lot of like toxic masculinity that both Chuck and Rowan have to really unravel and unpack. But I just felt like this book, like I said, was so Chuck and Blair coded. It was wild seeing the similarities between both relationships. Now, I will say that Zara is nothing like Blair, like at all, so don't get it twisted. Zara is nothing like Blair. It's because of the will they, won't they trope. There were so many times where Rowan and Zara had breakthroughs in their relationship and you thought that they were going to take it to the next level, only for Rowan to get spooked and self-sabotage and essentially push Zara away, similar to how Chuck used to do Blair. And I'm not saying that that's right, and I'm not saying that I condone that in real life, because I don't. When it comes to TV shows and books, I don't mind it because I like angst, I like tension, I like drama, and I like that in my books and my media because I need to be engaged, I need to be interested, and that's one of the few ways to keep me interested or hooked on a plot. And I also wanted to say that I love the fact that Rowan and Zara saw the other for who they really were. Similar to all of the other couples that I mentioned in this video, these two truly took the time to learn what makes the other tick and why they are the way that they are and why the other reacts the way that they react, especially Zara. She was very patient and very understanding with Rowan, and I loved it. I loved everything about that. So I just had to throw that part in there too, but that was a huge selling point for me when it came to the story. You could tell, again, underneath all of that, Rowan genuinely loved Zara down. He loved this woman, and I was so excited and so happy for them when their relationship finally started to blossom. If you were looking for an epic love story or a love story that is just so emotional and that's just not picture perfect, then I definitely recommend picking up this book, because Rowan is not perfect by any means, but they work well, and they work well together, in my opinion. Especially when Rowan gets out of his own head and doesn't let things spook him. The impact and the power that him and Zara could have and do have is very similar to Blair and Chuck. And so, like I said, I just really love that this book gave me those same feelings, but I also just really love that this relationship and this love story was their own at the end of the day. Again, it's not perfect, and Rowan is a very flawed man. And even in the beginning right here, Lauren Asher has a dedication, and it says, "To the girls who dream of meeting a prince but end up falling for the misunderstood villain." And that's exactly how I would describe Rowan. He is very misunderstood, and once you really get below the surface, you see that he's just hurting, needs to heal. I feel like that was one of the other central messages and themes of the story, is that hurt people hurt people. I'm not saying that it's right, I'm not saying that I condone it, but when you start to unravel Rowan's history and his past, and you start to see why he reacts the way that he does, it does put things into perspective for you. I just had to plug this book. I just finished it a couple nights ago, and I haven't been able to stop thinking about it or Zara and Rowan since. So yes, this is another couple that is going in my top 5 favorite couples of all time. I love them with everything in me. They were beautiful, and the ending, this is what dreams are made of. Like, truly, no pun intended, the ending, this is what dreams are made of. So once again, shout out to Lauren Asher for making this. I cannot wait to continue on in the series, but as of right now, where it stands, Rowan and Zara are my faves. Rowan and Zara are my faves, and this is my favorite book as of right now out of the series. I obviously haven't read the other 2 books yet. They're on their way to me, but as of right now, the fine print, 5 out of 5 stars, period. All right, y'all, well, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope you were able to get some recs and some gems from this. Definitely let me know down below in the comments if you have read any of these books, if you agree with my sentiments on these books, or if you have any of your own recommendations that follow this theme or this trope. I would love to know, because I'm always looking for books that fit this soulmate twin flame trope. I just love it and I eat it up every single time. As a hopeless romantic, I can't get enough of it. So definitely let me know down below in the comments if you have any recs of your own. Please make sure you follow me on Bookstagram as well as Storygraph. I will leave all of that information linked down below, as well as at the end of the video like I always do. I will see you guys in my next video. Bye!